As far back as I can remember, I've always loved movies. I particularly had a soft spot for the crime genre, whether it be Tarantino flicks or psychological thrillers like A Clockwork Orange. But you all know what I'm talking about. Goodfellas, Martin Scorsese's mob masterpiece, released 30 years ago. Adapted from the book Wise Guys, this film chronicles the life of Henry Hill, who, quote, always wanted to be a gangster. At the age of 13, he gets to work at a cat stand for mafia boss Paulie Cicero. From here, he becomes friends with fellow mobsters Jimmy Conway and Tommy DeVito. And for the whole film, we get to see how glossy Henry's lifestyle was, and later major turning points when his partners went into dangerous waters, like killing Billy Bats, a main man. And then his downfall when he gets into drugs. First off, when you're a 90s kid like I was, you probably grew up watching Animaniacs, which had a segment called Goodfellas, a parody of Goodfellas. As a kid, I would act out Pesto's angry rants against Squid's innocent compliments to my siblings.
You saying that I got a big head? Is that what you're saying? What am I, a bloated, puffy roundhead here to amuse you?
No, I didn't say that. I said you're swell.
I am swell?
Yeah, you're swell.
Swell?
Yeah.
That's it. Here's your swell.
My parents would say, "Stop, don't fight." But it was just innocent pretending. I wasn't really good to fight them. Guess I didn't explain myself well. But my earliest recollection of Goodfellas was when I watched a clip of it at a summer film camp where they pointed out a continuity error that I cannot unsee to this day. But I won't tell you, my viewers, what it is. You wanna know why? Out of respect. I rented the movie around late 2016. Right out the bat, I was loving it, but then the DVD froze and skipped some scenes, and it wasn't one of the film's freeze frames. The very same thing happened when I tried watching Casino for the first time. Then later I found it was on Netflix streaming, so I gave it another watch, but it was getting late at night and I was feeling sleepy. And before I knew it, it was off streaming. Much later, I finally got to watch it in its entirety in a theater. I think some first-timers were watching it that night because there was a woman who softly exclaimed during the intense and violent moments. Anyway, it's become by far my favorite Scorsese movie. So, what makes this movie a classic? The answers may be very obvious, but for starters, I'll say the overall style. It is fast-paced and invigorating, with the cinematography giving us smooth tracking shots of the mafia life and people in the business. Some of you will agree that the shot of the movie is when Henry takes his then girlfriend Karen out to the Copacabana, where we get this long take of them coming in through the service entrance and having a table prepared immediately for them, as it displays Henry's power as a mobster. The funny thing was, it was not at all planned in the beginning. They couldn't get into the main entrance, so they worked around it, and the result turned out to be excellent filmmaking. Compared to The Godfather, which had a theatrical style, Goodfellas takes a realistic approach with its depiction of mob life. So, as glamorous as the mob life may look, the violence depicted here ain't romanticized. From the very beginning, they give us a glimpse of it without warning. But if you thought the violence in the film was brutal, it was way worse in real life. And appliances are no exception here. That is brutal. The next thing is the cast. Ray Liotta takes center stage with his energized performance as Henry Hill, along with his entertaining voiceover. Some of you may not want to admit this, but I think a lot of us can relate to Henry's longing to be a gangster.
Even before I first wandered into the cab stand for an after-school job, I knew I wanted to be a part of them. It was there that I knew that I belonged. And to me, it meant being somebody in a neighborhood that was full of nobodies.
Granted, he can be a real scumbag, but as mean as he can be, his reactions to the violence could mirror the audience's reaction, making him a bit more humanized. His pretty boy looks, I would say, is another factor. Even viler than Henry are Robert De Niro as Jimmy, and especially Joe Pesci as Tommy, who is a psychopathic time bomb that could go off at any moment. Pesci would win an Oscar for his performance and deliver one of the shortest acceptance speeches.
Oh, it's my privilege, thank you.
It was the only Oscar the movie won that night, while Dancing with Wolves took home Best Picture and other awards. What's the matter with you, Academy? Are you stupid or what? Lorraine Bracco is also really good as Henry's wife Karen, who gets to narrate a few times. Years later, The Sopranos would star a lot of actors who appeared in the film, like Bracco, Michael Imperioli, Tony Sirico, Frank Vincent, Chuck Lowe, the list goes on. And, oh my god, is that Samuel L. Jackson? I didn't know he was in this movie! Oh, now he's dead. Well, at least he'll get some payback. The other great thing is the soundtrack. Scorsese picked great tunes from the 50s to the 70s and used them to make unforgettable moments. When the first song, Rags to Riches by Tony Bennett plays, you are automatically drawn in, despite the gruesome violence you've seen. You also get classic rock songs like Gimme Shelter by the Stones, Sunshine of Your Love by Cream, and Layla, which is used in a staggering montage. Alongside Quentin Tarantino and Wes Anderson, Scorsese is a great filmmaker with a great taste in music. Another great thing about this movie is how some scenes were improvised. Scorsese letting his actors improvise could create some memorable moments in film history, such as the "You talking to me" scene in Taxi Driver. A great example is the famous funny house scene. This scene is great for a couple of reasons. The first one being Ray Liotta's freaking laugh. I love a good infectious laugh, and this one is just iconic. But most of all, the inspiration came from Pesci, who had a similar incident where he complimented a gangster for being funny, but the guy took it the wrong way. Nobody in the scene besides Liotta and Pesci knew what was going to happen next, and it added to the tension. You can see how some of them are relieved when Henry diffuses the situation. Another improvised moment is when Tommy takes Henry and Jimmy to his mother's place to get a shovel to bury Billy Bats. But his mother, who's played by Scorsese's real mother, sees them and makes them a meal to eat. And then she shows them her painting, which I'll tell you something about. I found the same painting in a restaurant called Nikki's Cold Fire in Nashville, Tennessee. I was there for a wedding, and it was exactly a year ago, so happy anniversary, Tristan and Jessica. The food was really good. Speaking of food, just watching the food scenes make me so hungry. If I had a great Italian feast as I'm watching the film, it would be heaven.
Delicious. Delicious.
Thank you.
But things for Henry will take a downward spiral when one day in particular would make his mob life crumble. This is another excellent sequence. The camera work is not as smooth as before. It's more frantic and handheld while the cuts are more frequent, as it parallels Henry's paranoid state, trying to get a lot of things done and having this helicopter on his tail. We get more well-chosen songs from Harry Nilsson, The Stones Again, Muddy Waters, and George Harrison. Now, I assume a lot of people may have known these songs from the movie, but not me. I listened to Jump Into the Fire on its own, and also What Is Life, which is one of my favorite songs ever. I mean, it's just beautiful and exhilarating. A great tune to play when you're driving on a highway. But I digress. I just find it so irresistible. After things fall apart for Henry, he is left without protection from the mob, so he makes a hard choice by entering the Witness Protection Program for safety. He doesn't go out in a blaze of glory, and the movie ends on a downbeat note for him as he lives the rest of his life like a schnook. But his story in this movie will be remembered for years to come. Goodfellas was a heck of a film to be released at the start of the 90s. It's violent, amoral, but it's also entertaining, alluring, and funny. It would become highly influential not just for other movies, but for television series too. The Sopranos owes its creation to the film. And if you ask me which I prefer more, this film or The Godfather, I would say Goodfellas is more my speed. But Godfather is still a great film, as well as its sequel, which I prefer more. That same year, Godfather Part 3 came out, but I think a lot of us can't agree which one was better. Some traces of Goodfellas style would be in Scorsese's later work like Casino, The Wolf of Wall Street, and The Irishman, but in my opinion, nothing beats the original, though these films are still good on their own. So I give Goodfellas my complete approval.